Welcome to Let's Talk About It. Broadcasting live from North Nashville, Tennessee. North Nashville spans from Metro Center down to the border of Bicentennial Mall, including the neighborhoods of Bordeaux, Buena Vista, Parkwood Estates, Germantown, Haynes Manor, Jefferson Street, Fisk Park, Cumberland Gardens, Oak Valley, Enchanted Hill, and many others. It's perhaps best known for the 3 universities housed here, including Tennessee State University, Fisk University, and Meharry Medical College. North Nashville is also home to the Tennessee Titans practice facility. The Tennessee Titans will begin construction on an expansion project at St. Thomas Sports Park, which will almost double its current footprint in Nashville's Metro Center neighborhood. The plan includes 60,000 square feet in additions, including a new building situated along one of the practice fields, and major renovation of spaces within the existing 75,000 square foot building.
Now live from North Nashville, Dr. William Head.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of Let's Talk About It with our special guest, Dr. Tiffeni Fontno of Peabody College or University at Vanderbilt.
Yes, Peabody Library, yes.
And she is the head librarian. You know, that lady used to stand at the desk and go, shh. That used to be the librarian's prominent duty, was to keep the library quiet. But then in the 60s, when people were actually reading and discussing stuff, the librarian became a person to direct the conversation. That was during, of course, the civil rights movement. But Dr. Fontno is far too young to have been around then. Doc, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here today.
Well, we appreciate you coming. You and I met surreptitiously. A gentleman that we both know said, you'd love to talk to Dr. Fontno. And I said, well, can you get me her contact information? And we were off and running. We share a common concern about the subversion of American history and the banning / burning of books in this country.
Yes. It's a serious issue. And for me, it's tied to literacy. That's why it means so much. It's a national issue, but it means even more to me in the Black community because it's tied to literacy and literacy acquisition for our young people. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And subsequently, we've had a discussion about the precipitous drop-off of the reading scores of young Black boys in the 3rd grade. And I am really concerned about that because the prison industrial complex builds its businesses where the reading scores are low.
Yes. For young Black boys and Black girls, 17% of young Black folks are at or above proficiency by the 4th grade. 17%. That's it. This is a crisis in our community, right? We really need to start kind of turning inwards and ask ourselves, what can we do as a community to make literacy one of the most important issues? Because literacy affects everything: health, consumerism, housing, opportunities and jobs. It affects every sector of life, right? So I'm at this place now where my whole passion is about sharing ideas of literacy, what's going on with banned books, and how do we get culturally relevant books in our children's hands as a community. It's our responsibility.
Well, of course, when we look at the actions of the kangaroo court called General Assembly of the State of Tennessee,
Yes.
we find that the efforts to create ignorance in the whole state is beyond belief. Not just with black youngsters,
That's right.
but rural kids all over the state in counties where they will not or cannot hire people in the particular uh, subject matter area to teach consistently.
Yes.
The problem with our the reading of the youngsters is that everything now, this little thing we call a cell phone. Yesterday, I set up a rental agreement with a company for some merchandise, and gosh, they got this whole line of stuff I've got to fill out, and if I don't know what it is talking about, then I'm out of business.
That's right. That's right. For me, my background is in children's literature. That's what I have a passion for. And what I see is maybe since 2012 and onward, there was an exponential increase in children's literature for children of color. And the stories that were coming out from these children of color were truth-telling stories from those communities. So if you look at a lot of the children's literature that's coming out now, it's history that we needed growing up. It would have affirmed us differently, right? And the difference it would make to put these books in these children's hands now would change the course of how they perceive themselves and their sense of belonging in a classroom, right? Not only in a classroom, but in life, because they have a place to stand on, because they can say, no, my history starts in Africa, right?
Exactly.
Not when we came over here, captured and enslaved, right? They can understand and be, like I using this word affirm because it's so important. It creates like their foundation. They can stand in that. These books are so incredible. I learned more being a children's librarian in the past 7 years about my history from children's books than I have in my whole K-12 experience. That's why it's so important for us to understand what these books are and do, and to get them in children's hands, right? Which is exactly why these books are being banned, because they are that powerful, right? Not only for us, but for the dominant culture that looks at these books and that has kids going home saying, Mommy, why did we do this to them? Why did this happen?
Somebody has to answer that question.
That's right. That's right.
And the answer is always we. Well, mommy, aren't we white?
Mm-hmm.
Did we not enslave these people? How did that happen? Now you've got a conversation because the baby is asking. When we look at the intergenerational trauma that slavery and Jim Crow and the sharecropping era gave us, the knowledge of the existence and the reasons why are devastating when compared to just like you had said about the child, why did we treat these people this way?
Yes, because children are only concerned with being fair, right? So these questions are going to happen, but parents haven't learned or haven't understood how to have those conversations constructively. So they fear those things instead of leaning into it and understanding how to have those conversations. So you don't have to feel like it wasn't you personally, but understanding the systems that created it and how to avoid those systems, right? How to humanize children regardless of their color, right? So And there are teachers that don't even know how to have those conversations, right? So that's why it's important to have a culturally relevant teacher, even because you have to understand the culture and the history to be able to have these conversations and say, you know what, I don't know, but I'm going to look into it and we're going to have a conversation. Or I'm going to talk to a librarian and find some books so we can read some stories and understand these things instead of being afraid of it. So that's a lot of what's happening now. And now they have a law behind it that even exacerbates the issue, because there's now a fear of, if I do talk about this, I'm going to get in trouble. So because I don't know what to talk about, I'm just going to act like it's not happening, which makes it even worse, right? So that's the situation that we're in. Mm-hmm.
It creates a desperate void in the relationship between youngsters who walk through the same door every morning and talk with each other and walk with each other and interact with each other. There's a void that is created by the ignorance of old people like me in saying, well, you don't need to read about this because it puts us in a bad light.
Right. And it's not about putting people in a bad light. It's understanding history so we can avoid making those mistakes again, right? And it's about not only having books where children can see themselves, but it's also books where other children can have empathy and awareness of others and be comfortable with it. You know, that's this idea of mirrors and windows. Not only do you see themselves, but you can see others. And that's what's so important about us understanding what's available with children's literature and young adults literature these days, because it's some very good writing and depicting of histories that have been lost, you know, and or hidden, if you will, right? These books are uncovering these things. And it's so important that, you know, we advocate for these books in our school and public library and in our homes.
I think it's the two most prominent institutions that we still have a matter of control over are non-state supported HBCUs and the Black church. And it is important to me that my alma mater, Fisk University, the school you went to for 3 years, Clark Atlanta University, Morehouse College, Spelman College in Atlanta, make every effort to get these youngsters to the books that you talk about.
That's right.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, when I went to Clark Atlanta University, I went to PWI my freshman year and I transferred. But that was when I became a scholar. I know it was because of what my professors instilled in me and the things that I saw that I'd never seen before. I saw those books that were hidden in my K-12 curriculum. I heard about these histories. So what I learned in those 3 years, I'd never seen in my life. Because what do you learn about during Black History Month? Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. That's it. But I learned about all the incredible things we did. I learned that we were philosophers. I had a philosophy teacher who was of the dominant culture, told me there were no Black philosophers. I was like, excuse me, no. I took a class on it. I was like, I'm going to need you to look up W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm going to need you to look up these people. These were our philosophers.
The sociologists in history.
Africa. That's right. You know, so it was there that I became a scholar. So I understood from that touch point what cultural relevance is and how that builds up somebody, you know.
Well, my thing is we ban books so that people are ignorant, which makes them more pliable and moldable in an ignorant state. And if we keep them ignorant and barefoot, then they stay home and have a house full of children and don't become professionals. They're not able to have mobility on their own.
Yes.
As a librarian, Are there resources that one can access to make an effort to put reading on the top shelf of every HBCU and every black church in this country?
I think the biggest asset is, to me, your public librarian and holding them accountable, right? Within the library profession, I think there's maybe 6% black librarians, so you'll be lucky to have one. But it's to say, because the public librarian, to me, is one of the last democratic institutions that we have. Anybody can walk up in there at any time and get something. Your academic librarian at your HBCUs should be on this as well, right? Your librarians should know what is relevant to their community. It's their whole job. So librarians follow you from the cradle to the grave, right? You have your public librarian, then you have your school librarian. If you should happen to go to college, you have an academic librarian, and then it goes back to your public librarian once you leave, right? So all that way, a librarian is following you and should know how to meet your needs, right? And if they don't, you should hold them accountable to knowing your needs. What are the important books in the Black community? Why are they not on these shelves? Or show me where they are on these shelves, right? Where is the programming for this? Where are the book clubs and outreach? Where is that bookmobile that needs to come in my neighborhood, right? If there's not that access there.
Why is the school that my children went to close when my grandchildren get old enough, which means all of that library resource is locked away and nobody can get to it?
Yes, why are there no school libraries in my school? That's a huge problem. Do you think that would happen in the suburbs?
No way, shape, form, or fashion.
Exactly.
I have a school that's 8 blocks from my house that thrived for decades, and all of a sudden they said, well, we're going to close it. So there goes the library, there goes the gymnasium, there goes the cafeteria, there goes all of those resources. Art, absolutely. I've got a next door neighbor who needs a speech therapist. So where this is all thrown out of the neighborhood or jerked out of the neighborhood and leave all these children, we have school choice. Well, hell, you had school choice when it was separate but equal. The choice was stay in your place or don't go to school. So we're back to that point again. You go where we tell you to go, or you don't go.
Yep. I happen to read again the book Savage Inequalities, and nothing's changed. Let me see, when did that book come out? It talks about Jonathan Kozol, and it talks about the state of schooling and education, especially for minoritized people. And nothing's changed, right? They've just advanced Jim Crow.
Yes.
It's just a newer version.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a newer version.
It's a less what's the word I'm looking for? When you hide something, it is covert. It's a less aggressive sort of Jim Crow. I
don't think they're hiding it down here, though. I could say that maybe when I was in Boston, when I worked in Boston, I think it's very overt here, and maybe because I'm new to this culture.
No, you're absolutely right. There's nothing new about your observation. Matter of fact, one state in the South withdrew all of its schools from the National Librarian Association or something, which meant they also withdrew all of the public libraries from that particular organization, which meant they don't have to do anything that is nationally recognized.
Right. All the best practices. So what's happening, I think, in places like Oklahoma, and I've read about in other places too, is they're threatening to withdraw from the American Library Association, and they're threatening to do that because they don't have to be accountable to best practices, right? The best ways we know to raise literacy rates and get books in children's hands, adult literacy and different programmings like that. They won't have to be accountable to those things anymore, to family literacy and things like that. And then in places like Texas, where you have them pulling out libraries and putting in detention centers in their place. So like I said, they're not hiding anything. They're telling you that that's part of the pipeline, right? So this is why we need to be aware of these things that are happening when it pertains to literacy, right? Because it's affecting our community in a way that is crucial for change. Like, we need to be critical of the things that we're seeing, especially with AI and things happening where we can visually look at something and might not be able to tell if it's real or not. We can read something and don't know if it's true or not. We have to be able to have these critical skills to be able to look at something and say, let me check out what this author is and what their stance is so that I understand, oh, this person is conservative. That's why this material looks like this, right? So we have to be able to have literacy within our community to be able to avoid the okie doke. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is as I watch the dehumanizing as I watch ethics and morals and judgment and the need for those who are public servants to be honest and forthright, as I see that dissolve, I am of the opinion that all that the media can do now is simply point to the fact that somebody is a felon, because nobody pays any attention to the fact that it's all right if you're a felon, just don't become the felon mayor of the city or a significant leader in a city. So now the Republicans are dancing a jig because the president's son was convicted of a felony. So what? He's not running for anything. That's idiocy. So when we read history, the history of today, when they talk about that happening, are we going to say, well, he's a felon, so what? Or are we going to make sure that people understand what a felony is?
That's right.
And what it affects. But that means you get to read. So the reading part is where we find ourselves in trouble right now.
That's right. And the accountability to the facts, right? And I think that's a part of media's responsibility as well, to present and hold those officials' feet to the fire to those facts, right? And explain the context of those facts. And that's not happening. They're worried about clicks and advertising instead of facts, right? So it's up to us, right, to be able to determine that. That's why I say, these things are being done to us systematically, but we as a community have to start taking the responsibility, because we cannot depend on others to take care of us. You know what I mean? So that's why we need to turn inward and say, what can we do to promote our institutions, our churches and barbershops, which there are barbershop literacy groups and things like that, and all these other institutions. How can we start promoting the truth? There's a church in Florida that's like, well, if it's illegal to talk about history, in our schools, we're going to talk about it in our Black history in our church.
That's right.
That's what we're going to do.
That's
the
right.
barbershops are in there like having young Black men read books as they're getting their hair cut. So there's different ways that we can, and we've always been an innovative people.
Absolutely.
We just have to be collective and see how are we going to do this.
I agree totally. And you and I talked the other day about my feeling that we've got to find a way to get our churches and our institutions, the only two places that we still consider ours, into the battle for these third graders.
That's right.
And I don't know how we'll get it done, but Lord willing, we will get it done to get some type of reaction from within, not looking for somebody outside to do it, but from within, to teach youngsters how to read and how to, as Jethro used to say on the Beverly Hillbillies, cipher. So it is very important that we find a way to do that. And that I'd never heard of the barbershop reading program, but that's something we can certainly talk about more.
There's a young gentleman, he is running, I think it's called Barbershop Books. He's running an incredible program where he's trying to, Barbershop Books. You can look it up online, barbershopbooks.org. I would love to promote him. He's doing a fabulous work where he goes into urban communities and partners with libraries and partners with barbershops to get books in these spaces so that, while you're sitting there, you could read a book. And I think some people offer free haircuts and things like that. I'm not, those are some of the programs that are being offered. And I think that's the kind of ingenuity that we've always had. And if the barbershop is the place, then the beauty salon is the place. And then the nail shop could be a place, and some other place can, where are these places that we're at that we can start thinking about doing that? When I was in Boston, there was a librarian who had books on a cart on the back of her bike, and she used to roll up to a park, to circulate books or to give out books. We know how to do this, right? We just have to commit to finding the means to do so and be targeted about what we're doing, right?
My thinking is not necessarily books. As I mentioned to you the other day, the periodical that is interesting to a youngster. Tell us what your favorite subject is. You want to be a plumber? Okay, we can get you a plumbing magazine. Right. You want to be a big machine operator? We can get you a Caterpillar catalog and all the that goes with it.
Comic book, everything.
Yes.
Like I used to, when I taught third grade boys, always used to have basketball cards, because if you want to talk about it so much, let's look at the facts on the back. And inevitably they would start arguing about data. And I was like, they're analyzing data. They're comparing and those are data analysts.
But
there.
What you created there was a need to be mathematically informed, which means now he's not just talking about numbers, he's talking about how numbers indicate success and failure. That's a great one there. Everybody, all these kids love the NFL, the NBA, and young ladies, music, dance, hair, and all these different periodicals that are sucking air right now because everything's online. I bet they would love to find youngsters who want these in-hand paper and ink information.
And you could get it both ways. You can get it in print, and the library offers magazines online as well. So all those things that you're talking about are available online as well. So if that's where they're going to be, then let's learn digital literacy so we can learn how to navigate literacy online as well as in print, right? Because there's advantages to print as well as online. Print makes you hold and deal with something, right? And you can comprehend it differently. But when you look at a lot of online things, it's basically for like quick facts. I go here and catch a thing. So it's like understanding how to navigate print and online information, which is not intentionally taught, like in reading and things like that, in reading programs and things like that. So that becomes an issue of another divide, right? So it's like, how do you, when do you present literacy or information in these different forms so that they can get to it? Because it's going to be there, so how do you make the best of having this device in your hand? They got comic books online at Nashville Public Library. I just checked out one from Muhammad Ali the other day, and I was like, this is amazing. You know what I mean? So if your kid likes comic books, get that app from the Libby app from Nashville Public Library, and I think it's called Comics Plus. Get all those comics in the palm of your hand and let that kid read.
Like I said, reading is like lifting weights. It doesn't matter how much you lift. Every time you lift it, you become stronger. So if you read a magazine article and you understand the information in it, that's just as good as reading Macbeth and wondering what thou and thee and what have you means, thine. So, you've got all these librarians right here in town. If you think of all the high school librarians, collegiate librarians like yourself, and the public librarians, what you got in Nashville? 600, 700, 800 of them, maybe.
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure exactly how many librarians there are.
There's always more than one in the library because the place stays open 18, 24 hours a day. So there are 3 or 4 at every library, and then you've got a reference librarian, you've got a periodic librarian, you've got
I'm a subject librarian, so I'm an education librarian. You have a business librarian. Even in Nashville Public, they have librarians that are based on their subject specialty too. So, you're exactly right. There are subject specialists within libraries. So if you really wanted to get, in the weeds and know about something, we're the ones, our whole job is to understand what the information landscape looks like. And to see the materials that are there. Yes.
So, Dr. Fontno, you and I are going to get with the 37208 work group that we have formed, and we're going to make this thing work. We're going to start small and work it until we get it all over town, all over the county, all over the state, and we'll move this thing forward. Now, if you had one last thing you would like to say to our listening audience, what would it be?
Please put a book in a kid's hand. Please spend some time talking to a kid about a book, or find that person who will. And if it bothers you so much, fight against these books being banned for our kids. It's their future that's in jeopardy. And it's that critical. Fight for our kids' right to read.
You must have been listening to my thoughts, because all of this is something that's going to affect young people 20, 30, 40 years down the road.
Right.
So if we allow it to happen, it will be something that clouds the water, fouls the air, and leaves people sick for a very long time. we appreciate you coming on to talk to us about this. I fully intend to draft you to the 37208 work group and move this thing to a logical and successful end. I think it is doable. There are enough barbershops and barbers around the city that we can call upon them, and beauty shops and nail salons and doctor's offices where you sit and wait for 2 hours. A kid ought to have something he or she can read that is interesting to them. I am an educator as a profession, but I am a realist that it is hard to get people to read what they're not interested in.
That's right. That is right.
That's the reason you got so many channels on cable. My goodness. Thank you very much again, Doc, and we will make this happen again.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the conversation.
You're very welcome.